They erased my name from the company website less than an hour after firing me. But what they didn't know, I still held a legal clause that required just one signature. Enough to take it all back. And when I bought the domain, they neglected every secret was exposed. My name is Natalie Monroe, and this is the story of how I built a company from nothing, lost it to corporate vultures, and then took it all back with a single dollar bill. The fluorescent lights in my Detroit apartment flickered as I hunched over my laptop, the smell of burnt instant noodles filling the air. It was 2018, and I was broke, brilliant, and desperate. The microwave had given up on life 3 days ago, sparking and dying in a dramatic display that left scorch marks on the kitchen wall. But that malfunction, that random electrical surge, had done something extraordinary to my code. I stared at the screen, watching the AI algorithm I'd been developing suddenly process data at speeds that shouldn't have been possible. The power surge had corrupted part of the code, but instead of breaking it, it had created an elegant workaround that reduced processing time by 87%. My hands trembled as I ran the tests again and again. The results held steady. "Holy shit," I whispered to the empty apartment. This was it. This was the breakthrough that would change everything. Over the next 2 years, I transformed that accidental discovery into something revolutionary. My apartment became command central for what would become NeuralSync, an AI platform that could predict market trends with uncanny accuracy. I recruited 2 college friends, Marcus, a back-end wizard who could make servers sing, and Elena, a UX designer who understood human psychology better than most therapists. We worked 18-hour days fueled by cheap coffee and cheaper pizza. Marcus set up camp in my living room, surrounded by towers of Red Bull cans that we'd eventually use as makeshift furniture. Elena transformed my bedroom into a design studio, post-it notes covering every surface with user flow diagrams and interface sketches. We coded through power outages, debugged during thunderstorms, and celebrated every small victory with gas station wine. The breakthrough moment came during a particularly brutal all-nighter. Elena had fallen asleep on the keyboard, leaving a string of random characters in our test data. When I ran the corrupted dataset through our algorithm, expecting errors, the system instead identified a pattern. None of us had seen a correlation between social media sentiment and microfluctuations in cryptocurrency values. Within 6 months, we had our first paying customers. Within a year, we were processing data for Fortune 500 companies. NeuralSync grew from 3 people in a cramped apartment to 30 employees in a converted warehouse in downtown Detroit. We maintained our scrappy startup culture even as the money started flowing. Friday afternoons meant coding competitions. Monday mornings began with team breakfasts where everyone, from our newest intern to me as CEO, took turns cooking. We had a wall where employees could write their wildest product ideas in permanent marker. Some were ridiculous AI that predicts what your cat is thinking. Others became features that defined our platform. The acquisition offer came on a rainy Tuesday in March 2022. I was debugging a particularly nasty recursive loop when Marcus burst into my office, laptop in hand, face pale. "Nat, you need to see this." Apex Ventures, a mid-tier investment firm known for buying and flipping tech startups, wanted NeuralSync. Their initial offer was insulting, barely enough to cover our annual revenue. But their second offer came with something more interesting than money. They wanted me to stay on as chief strategy officer, to maintain the vision that had built the company. I should have walked away. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap, but I was tired. Tired of 16-hour days, tired of managing cash flow, tired of being CEO when all I wanted to do was code. The idea of having corporate backing, of focusing purely on product development while someone else handled the business side, was seductive. "I'll sell," I told our lawyer, Janet Chen, a sharp-eyed woman who'd guided us through every legal hurdle since incorporation. "But I have conditions." Janet raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "I want an unusual buyback clause. If they terminate me without genuine cause, and I mean real cause, not corporate doublespeak, I can repurchase the company for the original sale price." "Natalie, no buyer would agree to that." "Then structure it differently. Make the sale price $1. Janet's coffee mug stopped halfway to her lips. $1. $1. In exchange, they pay me a salary as CSO, provide full benefits to all existing employees, and invest at least $10 million in product development over the next 2 years. But if they fire me without cause, I can buy back my company for the same price I sold it. That's actually brilliant and completely insane. Story of my life. The negotiations took 3 months. Apex's lawyers laughed at first, then argued, then threatened to walk away twice. But their CEO, Griffin Stone, was desperate. He'd promised his board a successful AI acquisition by year-end, and every other target had either been snatched up by bigger firms or priced beyond their reach. NeuralSync was his last shot at keeping his job. The final contract was a masterpiece of legal maneuvering, buried in Section 8C, written in the dense legalese that makes most people's eyes glaze over, was my golden parachute. If Apex Ventures terminated my employment without cause as specifically defined in Appendix J, I would have the right to repurchase all shares of NeuralSync for the original purchase price of $1. The clause would remain in effect for 5 years post-acquisition. Griffin signed it with a condescending smile. Welcome to the big leagues, Natalie. Try not to get overwhelmed. I smiled back, thinking of the dollar bill I'd already set aside in my desk drawer. The honeymoon period lasted exactly 6 weeks. That's how long it took for Griffin to start showing his true colors. The first red flag came during a product meeting where I was presenting our roadmap for the next quarter, mid-presentation. Griffin's phone buzzed. He answered it, turning his back to me while I was explaining critical infrastructure updates. Sorry, important call, he said, not looking sorry at all. Talia can catch me up later. Talia West, the newly appointed CMO, gave me a sympathetic look that was about as genuine as a $3 bill. She'd been brought in from Griffin's previous company, a failed social media platform that had burned through $50 million in VC funding before quietly shuttering. Her expertise seemed to consist primarily of using buzzwords like synergy and paradigm shift, while understanding nothing about our actual technology. The erosion of my authority happened slowly, then all at once. First, I was excluded from the weekly executive meetings. We need to streamline attendance, Griffin explained. Then my parking spot was reassigned to make room for Talia's Tesla. Small humiliations designed to make me feel unwelcome in the company I'd built. But the real betrayal came when they started dismantling our culture. The coding competition wall was painted over because it didn't align with Apex's professional image. The communal kitchen was converted into a conference room. Our open workspace, designed to encourage collaboration, was segmented into cubicles to improve productivity metrics. They're killing everything that made us special, Marcus said during one of our increasingly rare coffee runs. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. Did you see they rejected Elena's latest UI update, said it wasn't corporate enough? I know, I said, watching steam rise from my cup. Just hang in there a little longer. How much longer, Nat? Because I've got 3 recruiters calling me daily. I wanted to tell him about Section 8C, about the trap I'd laid before the acquisition. But I couldn't risk it. The walls had ears now. And Talia had hired a culture consultant who seemed more interested in monitoring employee communications than improving morale. Elena was the first to break. She turned in her resignation on a Friday, printed on the custom letterhead she'd designed for the company. I can't watch them destroy what we built, she said, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, Nat. I just can't. By month 3, half our original team had left. Their replacements were Apex loyalists, MBAs who spoke in spreadsheets and viewed our AI platform as just another asset to be monetized. They didn't understand that the algorithm's effectiveness came from the passion we'd poured into it, the countless nights we'd spent refining not just code, but purpose. The transformation of our workspace reflected the company's soul being stripped away. The wall of wild ideas was replaced with corporate motivational posters. The game room became a mindfulness center that no one used. Our beloved coffee machine, a temperamental beast we'd named Prometheus, was swapped for a sleek automatic model that dispensed flavorless brown water. I watched it all happen from my increasingly isolated office. My keycard stopped working for certain areas. My emails to Griffin went unanswered. In meetings, Talia would talk over me, presenting my ideas as her own, while Griffin nodded approvingly. "We need to pivot the platform towards social media integration," Talia announced during one particularly painful product meeting. "Less focus on market prediction, more on influencer metrics." "That's not what Neural Sync was built for," I interjected. "Our core algorithm is optimized for financial data patterns. Retrofitting it for social media would compromise its primary function." Talia's smile was all teeth. "Thank you for that technical perspective, Natalie. But we need to think bigger picture here. Griffin, I've prepared a presentation on the potential ROI. I sat through 20 slides of meaningless graphs while our lead developers looked at me with confusion and disappointment. After the meeting, Ben, one of our newer hires but a brilliant coder, pulled me aside. "Ms. Monroe, is it true what they're saying, that you're being phased out?" "What exactly are they saying, Ben?" He shifted uncomfortably. "That you're not aligned with Apex's vision, that you're holding the company back with outdated ideas." "And what do you think?" "I think they're idiots," he said flatly. "The algorithm you created is elegant. What they want to do would be like using a Ferrari to deliver pizza." I laughed, the first genuine laugh I'd had in weeks. "Keep that Ferrari running smoothly, Ben. No matter what happens." That night, I went home and pulled out my copy of the acquisition contract. 547 pages of legal text. But I only cared about one section. I read Section 8C again, running my finger under each word. The language was clear, unambiguous. Janet had done her job perfectly. I opened my desk drawer and looked at the dollar bill I'd saved. Serial number B04T488823K. Such a small thing to represent so much power. The final phase of my marginalization began in month 4. I arrived Monday morning to find my office access restricted to security update requirements. My company email had been migrated to a new domain without notice. The development dashboard I'd used daily showed insufficient permissions when I tried to log in. "Technical glitch," Griffin explained when I confronted him. "It is working on it." But IT wasn't working on anything. When I visited their department, my old friend Tommy, our head of infrastructure, couldn't meet my eyes. "I'm sorry, Nat," he whispered. "Orders from above. They're locking you out of everything. Even the Git repository. Especially that, they said you're a security risk." A security risk? In the company I'd built from scratch, whose core algorithm I'd written alone in my apartment, I was now classified as a threat. The isolation was complete by week's end. My name vanished from the company website as if I'd never existed. The Meet Our Team page showed Griffin as the visionary founder, Talia as the innovative force behind our success. 3 years of my life, erased with a few keystrokes. But they'd made one crucial mistake. In their haste to rewrite history, they'd forgotten about the small things. The domain registrations I'd personally purchased in the early days, the AWS instances still under my personal account, the backup servers I'd maintained as a paranoid safeguard against data loss. I spent my newly free time documenting everything, every email, every revised contract, every conversation I could legally record under Michigan's one-party consent laws. I built a timeline of the company's transformation, from innovative startup to corporate shell. Ben became my inside source, brave enough to share what was happening behind closed doors. The algorithm was failing. Without understanding its core architecture, Talia's team had introduced modifications that created recursive loops and data bleeding. Clients were complaining about accuracy drops. 2 major contracts were in jeopardy. "They're planning to fire you." Ben texted me on a Thursday night. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., HR is preparing the paperwork." I stared at the message, feeling oddly calm. The waiting was finally over. That night, I prepared my response. 1 sheet of paper, 1 envelope, $1 bill. I signed my name with the same pen I'd used to sign the acquisition documents. Everything had to be perfect. Legal challenges would hinge on details. And I'd learned from the best. I dressed carefully that Friday morning, not in the jeans and hoodie that had been my uniform for years, but in the one suit I owned, purchased for investor meetings I'd rarely attended. If they wanted corporate, I'd give them corporate. The HR meeting was held in Conference Room C, formerly our game room. I could still see the outline where the ping-pong table had scratched the floor. Griffin sat at the head of the table, Talia to his right, the head of HR flanked by two security guards. "Natalie," Griffin began, his tone artificially somber. "This isn't easy for any of us." I remained silent, hands folded in my lap. "Your role as Chief Strategy Officer has become redundant. The company has evolved beyond its original vision, and we need leadership that aligns with our new direction." "I understand," I said simply. Griffin blinked, clearly expecting resistance. "You do." "Of course, companies evolve, visions change. I appreciate you giving me 6 months to see the transition." Talia leaned forward. "We'll need you to return all company property immediately. Laptop, phone, any access cards or keys." I'd already packed everything in a box, which I'd left with reception. "Already done. Is there anything else?" The HR head pushed a stack of papers across the table. "This is your termination agreement. It includes a standard non-compete clause and—" "I won't be signing any additional agreements." I interrupted politely. "The original acquisition contract covers all necessary terms." "Ms. Monroe, I really think you should reconsider." "No, thank you." I stood, smoothing my skirt. "If there's nothing else—" Griffin's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. "That's it. No threats, no drama, no begging for your job back." I smiled, the same smile I'd given him when he'd signed the acquisition papers. Why would I beg for something I never truly lost? "Have a good day, gentlemen." Talia. Security escorted me to the lobby, where a small crowd of employees had gathered. Some looked sympathetic, others curious. Ben stood near the back, giving me a subtle thumbs up. I walked through them with my head high, out into the Detroit morning, where my real work would begin. I waited until exactly 9 a.m. the following Monday to send the email. Janet had reviewed it 17 times, ensuring every word was legally bulletproof. "Dear Board of Directors, per Section 8C of the Acquisition Agreement dated March 15, 2022, I am hereby exercising my right to repurchase all outstanding shares of NeuralSync, Inc. for the original purchase price of $1.00. Termination without cause as defined in Appendix J occurred on November 3, 2023. Certified check enclosed. Regards, Natalie Monroe." The response came faster than expected. Within an hour, Apex's legal team was calling Janet, screaming about technicalities and loopholes. But there were no loopholes. Janet had made sure of that. "They want to negotiate," she told me, barely suppressing her glee. "They're offering $5 million to void the clause." "No." $10 million. "No." "Nat, they're panicking. Griffin just offered to reinstate you with a promotion. Tell them to check their email." While Apex's lawyers scrambled, I'd been busy. Using the domain names I still controlled, I'd created a mirror site that told the real story of NeuralSync. Every email where Griffin had taken credit for my ideas. Every document showing Talia's incompetence. Every metric demonstrating how their improvements had degraded our algorithm's performance. But the killing blow came from the clients. Unknown to Apex, I'd maintained personal relationships with our original customers. When news of my termination spread, they were ready. 5 major contracts, representing 60% of revenue, included clauses requiring my personal involvement in product development. Without me, those contracts were voidable. By Tuesday, Apex's stock had dropped 12%. By Wednesday, 3 board members had called emergency sessions. By Thursday, Griffin was in full damage control mode. posting frantically on LinkedIn about innovative transitions and bold new directions while hemorrhaging clients and credibility. I watched it all from my new office, a small space I'd rented in the building directly across from NeuralSync's headquarters. I could see Griffin's corner office from my window. Watch him pacing during phone calls, gesticulating wildly at subordinates. The legal process ground forward with inevitable precision. Apex tried every delay tactic, every procedural challenge. But Section 8C held firm. The beauty of a $1 sale price was its simplicity. There was no valuation to dispute, no complex financial engineering to unwind, just a contract, a clause, and a dollar bill. During those weeks, the exodus began. First came the old guard, the employees who'd been with us from the early days. They'd stayed out of loyalty to the vision. But with me gone and the company imploding, they saw no reason to remain. Then came the newer hires, the talented developers who'd joined for the innovative culture only to find corporate mediocrity. Ben was among the first to reach out. Ms. Monroe, when you get the company back, and we all know you will, I want in. Whatever you're building next, I want to be part of it. Who says I'm building anything? I asked, amused. Because you're already incorporated, aren't you? I saw the filing. Block 0, LLC, starting from scratch, just like before. Smart kid. I had indeed incorporated, renting the warehouse next to our original space. While lawyers battled over NeuralSync's corpse, I was quietly rebuilding. Marcus came back first, then Elena, then a stream of others who remembered what real innovation felt like. We couldn't work on anything related to NeuralSync. I was careful about that, but we could prepare. We studied the mistakes, planned improvements, designed systems that would prevent another hostile takeover. We were a company in exile, waiting for our moment of return. That moment came on a cold December morning. Judge Patricia Williams, known for her no-nonsense approach to corporate law, delivered her ruling in less time than it took to order coffee. The contract language is clear and unambiguous. The plaintiff has met all conditions specified in Section 8C. The defendant's termination of Ms. Monroe's employment lacked the cause requirements detailed in Appendix J. Therefore, Ms. Monroe's exercise of the repurchase option is valid and binding. Apex Ventures will transfer all shares of NeuralSync, Inc. to Natalie Monroe within 30 days in exchange for the sum of $1. Griffin's face was a masterpiece of defeat. Talia had already fled, taking a position with another soon-to-be-failed startup. The board of directors sat in stunned silence as their sure-thing acquisition turned into a case study in contract law. I waited until the courtroom cleared before approaching Griffin. He looked older, grayer, diminished, the corporate shark reduced to a minnow. How he asked, voice hoarse, "How did you know?" I didn't know, I admitted. I hoped you'd honor the original agreement, that you'd see the value in what we'd built. The clause was insurance, not a plan. You destroyed me. My career is over. No, I corrected. You destroyed yourself the moment you confused ownership with understanding. You bought a company, but you never understood its soul. The transition happened faster than the acquisition. Within a week, I was back in my office, the motivational posters already in the dumpster. Within 2 weeks, we'd restored the development environment and begun fixing the damage to our algorithm. Within a month, every client who'd threatened to leave had renewed their contracts. But I didn't restore everything to how it was. Some changes were kept: better security protocols, cleaner code documentation, more robust backup systems. We'd learned from the experience, emerged stronger and warier. The warehouse became our new home, transformed into a space that honored our past while embracing our future. The idea wall returned, bigger and bolder. The kitchen reopened with a better coffee machine, though we kept Prometheus for nostalgia. We instituted profit sharing for all employees and created an ownership structure that would prevent future hostile takeovers. 6 months later, I stood on stage at the Digital Innovation Summit, facing an audience of 2,000 tech leaders, investors, and entrepreneurs. The conference organizers had asked me to share the NeuralSync story, the real version, not the sanitized corporate narrative Apex had tried to sell. They erased my name from the website within an hour of firing me, I began, letting the words hang in the air. They thought that by deleting my history, they could claim my future. They were wrong. I talked about the microwave that sparked a revolution, the apartment that became an incubator, the team that became a family. I explained the acquisition, the betrayal, the isolation, and then I told them about Section 8C. Griffinstone once told me, "Welcome to the big leagues," I said, pulling out a small frame from behind the podium. Inside was a single dollar bill, serial number B042488823K, the same one I'd used to buy back my company. He was right. In the big leagues, you play to win. But winning isn't about crushing others or stealing credit. It's about building something so valuable, so essential, that it can't be destroyed by corporate incompetence. The audience erupted in applause, but I wasn't finished. To every founder in this room who's considering an acquisition, read every line of that contract. Insert your own protections. And never, ever sell for a price you can't afford to buy back. To every investor who thinks culture doesn't matter, who believes that vision can be replaced with spreadsheets, remember that innovation isn't a commodity. It's a practice, a belief, a commitment to something greater than quarterly earnings. I held up the framed dollar bill one more time. This dollar represents more than a clever legal maneuver. It represents faith in the value of what we create, faith in the teams we build, faith that truth and talent will ultimately prevail over corporate manipulation. They tried to erase me from my own story. Instead, they wrote themselves out of it entirely. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Afterwards, a stream of founders approached with their own stories of corporate betrayal and survival. Some had won, others had lost. But all understood the fundamental truth I'd learned in technology. As in life, those who create will always have power over those who merely acquire. Griffinstone resigned from Apex Ventures 2 weeks after my keynote. His LinkedIn profile now lists him as an independent consultant. Corporate speak for unemployed and unemployable. Talia West's new startup folded within 6 months, burning through investor money with nothing to show for it. NeuralSync, meanwhile, thrived. We went public on our own terms, with a structure that kept control in the hands of those who understood our mission. Our algorithm, refined and improved, became the industry standard for predictive analysis. We acquired 2 smaller companies, treating their founders and employees with the respect Apex had denied us. The dollar bill still hangs in my office, a reminder and a warning. Below it, I've added a small plaque with a simple message: never sell what you're not willing to buy back. Ben, now our lead algorithm architect, likes to bring new hires to see it. That's the dollar that saved the company, he tells them with pride. But really, it was never about the money. It was about believing that what we built mattered more than what they paid. He's right. Of course, the dollar was just paper and ink. The real currency was conviction. The unshakable belief that creation beats acquisition, that innovation trumps manipulation, that those who build will always find a way to reclaim what's rightfully theirs. Every morning, I walk through our offices and see the controlled chaos of creation. Developers arguing over elegant solutions, designers obsessing over pixel-perfect interfaces, sales teams who actually understand what they're selling. The walls are covered with new ideas, some brilliant, some ridiculous, all welcomed. The kitchen smells like real coffee and possibility. Sometimes, standing in the space we've built and rebuilt, I think about that flickering apartment in Detroit, about burnt noodles and accidental discoveries. I think about how close we came to losing everything to corporate greed and incompetence, and I smile, knowing that we didn't just survive, we transcended. They tried to erase me from the company website. Instead, I erased them from the company's future, and all it cost was $1 and the courage to believe I was worth more than they could ever understand. The best revenge isn't destroying those who wronged you. It's building something so magnificent that their betrayal becomes nothing more than a footnote in your success story. They wanted to delete me from history. Instead, they became a cautionary tale in mine. Always read the fine print. Always protect what you've built. And never, ever underestimate the founder who keeps a dollar bill in her desk drawer, waiting for the moment when corporate arrogance meets contractual consequence. Welcome to the big leagues, indeed.